I started the day dreaming of a top 50 finish, and for a while there, it actually felt possible. So how did I end up in 69th?
69.
Let's take a look by the numbers. If you haven't seen the full race video, I suggest you go and check that out first. But long story short, I got dropped, but not where you'd expect. It wasn't the climb, it was the descent. When I crested the final climb, this guy just beside me, he actually finished in 37th place. He made it to the bottom, held the rest of the group off. Not to say I could have done that, but that's probably the best version of my race right there. So why did I end up back in 69th? The first battle was the opening climb. My goal was to do a 20-minute power PB. I thought I had it on the day, but it turns out not quite. 335 watts for 20 minutes, which is around about 4.45 watts per kilo. I think I could have probably done the 350 watts that I had planned, but it wasn't required. That saw me come over the climb in 51st place, which I believe was the second bunch and only about a minute and a half behind the leaders. Second goal was to hold my own on the second climb, which I think I did. At the start of the climb I was in 107th place, and by the end I was in 66th. Third goal was to stay confident down the fast descent. Well, this is maybe where I came unstuck. Let's take a closer look at that. I completely underestimated how much the descent would shape this race. I spent all my energy planning the climb, pacing, position, power, and I didn't spare a single thought for what came next. Descending has never been my strength. I can get down fine, usually fast enough, but I tend to be on the cautious side. I do better when I've got a wheel to follow because it stops me from overthinking. On this day, the conditions really exposed that weakness. A smaller but important detail, gearing. I've been thinking about going from a 5236 to a 5440 for a while, just to have a little bit more on those fast sections. This was the first time I really felt the limit. On the more controlled parts of the descent, I felt like I was maxing out and leaving a gap in between me and the guys in front. A bigger ring would have helped. Then there was the whole braking situation. Since arriving in Lorne, I'd had 3 different braking experiences. On Friday, I had nothing on the front. By Saturday, it was spongy at best, and then it was fine before the race started. I don't want to get too far off track here, but one of the Shimano mechanics gave me a great tip. Long story short, the air pressure changes during the flight can push the pistons in and out, even when you've put those little plastic brake wedges in. The only real fix that you can do is to use a proper bleed block, the ones that they use when they're actually changing the fluid. You do have to pull out the pads, but it will stop the bubbles forming in the line. I don't think it's the brakes that cost me the time, but when you've had a mixed experience like that, confidence is never going to be quite 100%, and confidence matters on a descent like this one. Halfway down, it went from organised to survival of the fittest. Nobody was slowing down, unless it was to stay out of a ditch. You can see here in the footage from Fresh Crits, in the 35 to 39 years race, riders are getting blown across the road and there's a massive pile up in the ditch. It was the same for us, just hanging on. After the race I spoke with Stephen. He said,
"So hang on tight, get down low and get all your weight over the front wheel so you don't get blown across the road."
I'd never heard that before, and to be honest, I think I was doing the opposite, sitting back and trying to feel safe, and that was probably a part of the problem. By the bottom, the race was gone. Not because of power, because I didn't have the instincts or the confidence to stay in it. That's unfortunately something that no amount of interval training can help solve. My nutrition plan for this event was pretty tight. The main question I had was around logistics. Did it make sense to try and get my family up the road to avoid carrying the full 2.5 kilos of weight up the opening climb? Deans Marsh is where I would put someone up the road though, so there's probably opportunity just to scope that out. I was having a look at the maps and whatnot yesterday. There's a lot of road closures around here and there's not a lot of back ways in. They do say there is a back way, but I don't know, it might be a little bit complicated. I would hate for my family to get stuck somewhere. I'd hate, for them to just not be able to get through in time and get that nutrition to me. It may not be worth it in the end. Looking back, I think it was the right call. Maybe I could have saved 20 or 30 seconds on the first climb, but given how it played out, the transition probably would have cost me more than the weight would have saved. Getting out of the line, grabbing a musette, eating all that wind, you'd hate to get dropped like that. As for the plan itself, it worked. I got through about 3/4 of my flow gel, roughly 230 grams of carbs, and probably the same again through my bottles, another 90 or so. That put me at around about 100 grams an hour, which is right where I wanted to be. The only problem I faced was cramping. I often wonder if that pattern, right around the 2.5 hour mark, has something to do with my sodium intake. In the week after the event, I was lucky enough to put that hypothesis to the test.
Once we get a sample, we'll be able to put that into the analyzer, and that'll give us the total amount of sodium in milligrams per litre of your sweat. 1,000's average, so 991 milligrams is like the exact average per person. We've done 25,000 tests. Just this weekend we've had, I think the lowest we've got on record was 600 milligrams per litre. And then the highest was a lady we tested yesterday who was 1,700. So definitely very variable. It's not something that you could really predict without doing a test. And the good thing about this test is it doesn't change over your lifetime. So your sweat sodium concentration is mostly genetic, so that's not going to change whether you're super fit or super unfit. So 860. So for every litre of your sweat, you're losing 860 milligrams of sodium, which makes you a moderately salty sweater.
How appropriate that the moderate cyclist would sweat in a moderate way?
I'd say probably aiming for anywhere between 750 and 1,000 milligrams of sodium per litre of fluid that you're drinking during racing is probably going to be about right. You can afford to slightly under or slightly overdo it, that's okay.
Turns out my sweat rate is fittingly moderate, but I'm likely underdoing on the sodium. For high intensity events like this, where the sweat rate climbs, doubling the sodium in that first bottle might help stave off those late phase cramps. Another thing I keep underestimating is positioning. It's a challenge that starts before the race even begins. In Brisbane, I aggressively got a spot at the front of the starting pens. Despite that, I still managed to slip into bad habits. Getting comfortable, settling into a rhythm, and before I knew it, I was halfway down the bunch again. At Worlds, I was probably a bit too relaxed about it. Our wave was leaving at 7:30 and I'd aimed to be in the pen at 7. But even with that half an hour lead, I was already at the back. I must admit I was more focused on my kit choices and staying warm than fighting my way through all of the starters. From the gun it was obvious, I was too far back. Positioning's one of those things that never stops. Maybe it comes naturally for some, but for me it's something I have to stay conscious of. Maintaining or even defending a better position gives you options. You can see the moves, anticipate the surges, not just react to them. Looking back at this race, there were a few key moments where being further forward could have made a real difference. At the start, if I'd been closer to the front, I probably could have held the back of the lead bunch. They were only about a minute faster up the 20-minute climb, and honestly, being on the back of that group would have taken about the same, if not less effort than sitting on the front of the second one. Then at Dean's Marsh, when the bunches came back together, that was a gift. I pushed forward, saw Chris Miller, and kind of settled in. I should have kept going, got right back to the front. That was my chance to reset the day, and I let it go. Heading into the second climb, I'd been stretched out and nearly dropped. By the time the attacks went, I didn't even know a move had gone up the road. I was just too far back to see it. Time and time again, I'm reminded how much racecraft really matters. In the moment, it's easy to settle into your rhythm. Ride a bit easier, tell yourself you're being smart and saving energy. but most of the time it comes back to bite you. You drift, you lose position, and suddenly you're spending even more effort trying to get back to where you should have been in the first place. It's something I need to keep working on, and the simple answer is probably just more racing. More chances to stay switched on and see which moves matter. There were some moments today where I actually did get it right, not settling for one's pace but setting it, moving up through the bunch on the Canadian guy's wheel, and responding when Rob made his move and holding his wheel even when it stung. I just need to make those moments the rule and not the exception. That brings my Road to World Series to a close. It wasn't the result I wanted, but the World's experience was unreal. There's something different about racing in an international field. I've taken a lot away from it, and I'm asking myself whether I should try again next year in Japan. Tour de Brisbane will be the only Australian qualifier left. Should I aim for Japan? Are you? And what's your next UCI event? I have a couple of fun videos still to come this year, and 2026 starts with a new partner and an event I've never done before. Huge thanks to Height Cycling, Stephen Lane, Insta360 and Nicole from PF&H. Other than that folks, until next time, see ya!